Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my Sandy Jones lunchtime chat for April. I believe that we will have some callers from other provinces as well today, which I find very exciting, or some listeners, I should say, from other provinces. So I just want to make you aware of the fact that you can ask me questions while I'm doing my chat today. You can contact us through my CEO, Debbie Davis, and her email address is debby.davis, that's D-A-V-I-S, at Parkinson, Parkinson.ca. Or if you'd like to call me at 416-227-3375, or my 1-800 number is 565-3000, extension 3375. So you can connect with us. I may not have an opportunity to respond to all of your questions during my presentation, but I'd be very happy to do so afterwards as well. And don't think that you have to ask me questions specifically about today's topic. You can ask me questions about anything, and I will definitely get back to you. So once again, welcome. Today's talk on the stages of Parkinson's. What do they mean, okay? And probably not what you think. So that's the topic for today. The stages of Parkinson's, what do they mean? And it's probably not what you think. So over the course of the many years, I have been responding to requests for information from people living with Parkinson's, as well as those of your care partners and members of your families. I have had numerous questions about the stages of Parkinson's, what they are, and what do they mean. In the past, my usual answer has been something like, don't worry about what stage you're in. You could go from stage 1 through stage 2, 3, and 4, and back again throughout the course of a day, particularly if you have had Parkinson's for a long period of time. So it's not something you should be concerned about. Let's talk about what's going on with you right now and what your concerns are. While I still believe in what I just said, I feel that at times I have been rather dismissive to some individuals who are genuinely concerned about where they are on the continuum of the Parkinson's journey, and discussing stages is indeed important to them. This fact really hit home to me recently when I was approached at the end of a support group meeting by a very tearful lady who appeared to me to be quite newly diagnosed, as her symptoms were barely visible. She shared with me that her husband had recently passed away in the 4th stage of cancer. At her last appointment with her neurologist to assess her Parkinson's and how she was doing, this lady, she had been told that she was in stage 1 of Parkinson's, but she was not given any explanation as to what that meant. The only thing she had to compare it to was the fact that her husband had been in stage 1 of his cancer just 2 years ago, and he had progressed quickly into stages 2, 3, and by the time he was told that he was in stage 4, his condition was indeed palliative. That's when treatment was not helping anymore, and only comfort measures were now appropriate for him. As that was her only point of reference, this lady naturally assumed that her Parkinson's would also progress quickly, and that she would be severely disabled in the not-too-distant future. This, of course, is not the case, but, as I said a few minutes ago, I realize that some of you listening today may be comparing yourselves to conditions like cancer and heart disease, and as a result of the stages of Parkinson's, that can be very frightening if that's your only point of reference. The stages of Parkinson's are not what you think. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to try and explain what they are. Please, please, please keep in mind that for many people, it takes over 20 years to go through the stages of Parkinson's. And, like I said earlier, your level of mobility fluctuates drastically throughout any given day. So, as I share the typical patterns of progression that are defined in the following stages, and you compare yourself and align yourselves with the various stages, as I'm sure you will all do, keep in mind that you will most likely go through 1, 2, or even 3 of the stages at various times throughout the day, in particular in relation to whether you are on or off, i.e., when your medications are working well and you might fit into stage 1 or 2, but when you don't have enough dopamine on board and your gas tank of dopamine is hovering near empty, you may have more mobility problems which will improve once your medication kicks in. So again, you could go from stage 3 and back to stage 1 with the appropriate amount of medication in your system. Just one more thing to keep in mind before I start listing the stages, and that is to understand that most people spend most of the time between stages 1, 2, and 3, and much less time in stages 4 and 5. Okay, so here goes. The 5 stages of everything you never wanted to know about Parkinson's disease, and now you need to. The first method of designating the severity of tremor, slowness, stiffness, and problems with your walking and balance is known as the Hone and Yar scale, which is a scale used throughout the world still today. According to this scale, stage 1 means you have unilateral involvement only. So basically, we're talking about problems on one side of your body only, and usually with minimal or no functional impairment. So basically, you're getting along just fine. Thank you very much. So what did I just say? Too many complicated words for me, so I'll put that into terms that I can understand. So, stage 1 is indeed the mildest form of Parkinson's. This is the person with Parkinson's experiences symptoms of at least 2 of the following: tremor or shaking in a hand or a limb when the limb is at rest, and stiffness or rigidity and slowness. Note that I said at least 2 of the above, as a diagnosis of Parkinson's cannot or should not be made on the basis of one symptom alone. Let's take tremor, for example. Although tremor is indeed the most well-recognized symptom of Parkinson's, it is important to know that some people never develop a tremor, and tremor is a symptom also of other disorders as well. So if you went to the doctor with a tremor and he said you have Parkinson's based on that symptom alone, that may be not a correct diagnosis for you. Okay, so given that all of the symptoms are mild and subtle, people who consult a doctor about very early, mild symptoms of Parkinson's may be frustrated with the medical profession because doctors often cannot make a quick diagnosis based on your very early symptoms. After a physician suspects Parkinson's, however, looking back at the early symptoms can also help confirm or even dismiss the diagnosis. So let's take a minute to look at how the early signs and symptoms might demonstrate themselves. You may have signs which are things that you can see and feel, and symptoms which are the things that you can feel. Sorry, I misspoke. Let me go back. Signs are things that others can see. Symptoms are the things you can see and feel in yourself. A change in your facial expression. You may be staring, or you have a lack of blinking. A failure to swing one arm when walking, or you might start limping or dragging one leg. You may have a stooped posture. You may have a frozen or painful shoulder. You may have numbness, tingling, achiness, or discomfort in your neck or in your limbs. You may have lost your sense of smell. Your voice may be softer than usual. You may feel a sensation of internal trembling that no one else can see. And of course, your hand, arm, or leg may shake without your permission when it is not doing anything. Of course, there may also be other symptoms as well, but these are some of the most common early symptoms. Did I mention that the early symptoms commonly begin on one side of the body? Why? Well, no one seems to really be able to answer that question. A Parkinson's specialist was asked that once at a conference I attended years ago, and his answer was, why not? Nothing else about you is exactly the same on both sides of your body. Your face is not perfectly symmetrical. One eye might be a bit higher than the other. Your legs and arms are not exactly the same length. One foot is often bigger than the other. So, why your symptoms have to be on the same side, be the same on both sides of your body? Well, who knows? They're just not. In the absence of a proven evidence-based reason, that answer seemed to satisfy the audience, but it still left me wondering. People sometimes wonder whether the side of the onset of their symptoms has any relation to handedness, i.e., what side is your dominant hand, on your right or your left? But no such connection has ever been made. Mildly affected patients at stage 1 may not need any treatment, but if you have a moderate disability, you will be much more comfortable with therapy. If you are a ballroom dancer, for example, and you have stopped dancing because your leg is dragging and you can't move fluidly across the dance floor, it might be time for medication too. Symptoms are not severe enough to interfere with daily tasks and your overall lifestyle. That concludes stage 1. So enough about that. If I keep talking, I'll never get off this stage. Good thing you're on the phone and can't throw things at me to tell me to be quiet and get on with it. Stage 2. This is considered the mild to moderate stage. The biggest difference between stage 1 and stage 2 is that in the second stage, the individual symptoms are bilateral, now affecting both limbs and both sides of the body. Also, if you have tremor, it will be moderate now instead of just mild, and your degree of stiffness will also be a little bit worse. Now you will also have slowness of movement, which you may not have had or noticed in stage 1. In other words, the muscle stiffness makes it more difficult to perform your regular activities. Don't misunderstand me, though. You can still do normal physical tasks. It just takes longer to complete them, so ensure you plan for extra time. For example, if you and your partner are going for a walk, give yourself extra time to do up those shoelaces, or you may find yourself subjected to the 2 most hated words in a person with Parkinson's life. Hurry up! Of course, as soon as you hear those words, you automatically go from slow to slower, and you may even stop, heaven forbid. So, avoid that at all costs. You could also invest in shoes with Velcro fastening. That works really well too. If you didn't start medication in stage 1, stage 2 is probably the time to start for sure. Now, we went through stage 2 quite quickly. Now we're on to stage 3. which is moderate to significant symptoms. Stage 3 is considered mid-stage in the progression of the disease. Your tremor, your stiffness, your slowness of movement will be significantly worse by now. This is the stage where you will probably develop problems with your balance as well. You may have difficulty changing direction and turning around without a great deal of hesitation and stopping. Freezing is often a major issue at this stage. That's when your feet get stuck to the floor. And it can occur at any time, both when you're trying to start to walk, as well as when you are already walking and may suddenly stop because your feet again feel like they're glued to the floor or stuck in big buckets of cement. At this stage, stage 3, you may also begin to notice fluctuations in your level of function at various times throughout the day, depending on how well your medications are working. Side effects of the medications, such as dyskinesias, which are those drug-induced involuntary movements, may show up at this stage too. You may have difficulty standing independently and walking in a straight line. Falls are also more common now due to loss of balance and activities of daily living, such as dressing and cutting your meat, and you may require some assistance with these things. This is a good time to start practicing accepting help gracefully and maintaining your dignity. The alternative isn't going to be very pleasant for you or for your care partner. Stage 4. Okay, so we've gone from mild in stage 1, moderate in stage 2, significant in stage 3. Now, in stage 4, symptoms are quite severe. You will still be able to walk, but walking will be limited, as the slowness and stiffness and problems with balance are more debilitating now. If you haven't already started to use a walker, you will most likely need one at this stage. You will require some assistance with your eating, with dressing, with toileting, and with your daily hygiene, but you will still be able to do some things for yourself. It is important to structure your day so that you can have time when your time for your activities are based on when your medications are working at their best. Ons and offs will be more dramatic now. When you're good, you're very good. But when you're bad, well, you fill in that blank. Stage 5. This is the most advanced and debilitating stage of Parkinson's. And please, you can't read my lips, but please, 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 listen to what I'm saying. Many, many people living with Parkinson's never reach this stage. Stiffness in the legs may make it impossible to stand or walk. Individuals in this stage will definitely require a wheelchair and will need to be lifted or possibly even carried from their bed to their chair. Around-the-clock nursing care is required for all activities, as individuals are usually unable to care for themselves. Combined with all the mobility issues, this stage will also bring an increase in the severity of many of the non-motor symptoms, as well as such things as loss of bladder and bowel control, difficulty with swallowing, which can lead to episodes of choking, maybe even lead to aspiration pneumonia. People at this stage can be confused, have significant memory problems, and which can result in dementia. As a result of having taken anti-Parkinson's medications for many years, some individuals may experience hallucinations. They are usually visual hallucinations, that is, seeing people and objects that no one else can see and that are indeed not there, or they may experience delusions, which are false beliefs, which can take the form of believing that a spouse is having an affair or thinking money has been stolen from them. As I alluded to earlier, the issues that arise in this advanced late stage of Parkinson's does require full-time nursing care and is the most actual common reason why individuals are admitted into long-term care facilities. Hallucinations and delusions are usually at the top of this list as to why people need to be admitted into long-term care, as these are very difficult to be handled within the home. I hasten to point out at this time, however, that hallucinations and delusions may be eliminated or at least reduced in severity by changing, reducing, or even eliminating anti-Parkinson's medications. The result of doing this, however, will mean an increase in the individual's tremor, stiffness, and slowness, resulting in less mobility. But for some people, this is not an option. So, if the anti-Parkinson medications can't be reduced, there are also a number of drugs available for treating both hallucinations and delusions. So it is not a reason for giving up. The point I'm trying to make here is that regardless of what stage of Parkinson's you are in, if you experience seeing things that no one else can see that are frightening and upsetting to you, or if you think people are cheating you and persecuting you, I should say, it is important and imperative to let your doctor know, because there is treatment available. And for all the caregivers out there today who are listening, please let the doctor know what is going on, as there is no need for you and your loved one to suffer in silence. These symptoms are a side effect of the anti-Parkinson's medications, and your loved one does not have any control over them. This is nobody's fault. These symptoms are very real to the person with Parkinson's, and nothing you can say or do will change their minds that these things are actually happening. Sometimes changing the subject or diverting the individual's attention, get them focusing on something else, will help, but tell your doctor right away. Again, there is treatment available. So, despite the heaviness of my chat so far with you today, I hope that most of you are still listening and that you haven't hung up in despair, because there are several things of a more positive nature that I want to share with you now. To begin with, I have no doubt that many of you have been sitting there for the past 20 or 30 minutes listening to my description of each stage and doing exactly what I asked you not to do, which is why I was so ambivalent about discussing the stages with you right from the get-go. I'll just bet that some of you have been saying to yourself as I describe the various levels of mobility in each stage, well, that's me. That's exactly how I am right now. So I must be in stage 3, completely forgetting what I said at the start of today's talk. Your level of mobility fluctuates drastically from day to day or even during the course of the day, depending as to whether you are on or off, whether your meds are working effectively or not at various times of the day, as well as other factors, including your stress level, because, as you know, stress makes your symptoms worse. Within just a few hours, you can go from feeling your tremor, stiffness, and slowness are just a nuisance, a bally nuisance, to say the least, to having difficulty doing up your buttons and zippers, or even putting on your coat, etc. So how the heck are you supposed to know what stage you are in? Well, that's a good question that I'm not sure even the very best specialists really have the answer to, which is one reason why I usually say that, in my opinion, it's not something you should really be concerned about. Focus on the here and now. What's going on right here and right now? Also, I have just gone through the 5 stages in about 30 minutes or so. The reality is that going through the various stages usually takes anywhere between 1 and 40 years living with Parkinson's, thanks to all the advances in our knowledge and understanding of Parkinson's over the years, which has been translated to new medications, new ways of administering medications, as well as other new forms of therapy, such as deep brain stimulation surgery, for example. I am privileged to know individuals who have had Parkinson's for 20 to 40 years, and who, despite many challenges during their journeys with Parkinson's, still have a very good quality of life. So once again, please, 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 don't make any decisions based on how you are doing right this very minute. Progression from stages 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 can take many years, and there's no way to predict anyone's individual progression. I now want to focus on an alternative rating system because, as I'm sure you have noticed by now, the home and yarn rating system focuses solely on symptoms of movement. And as we all know, there is much more to Parkinson's than just symptoms with movement. Although there are several scales for determining the degree of disability in a person with Parkinson's, I am going to talk about the one that is used most commonly by clinic nurses and neurologists today to assess and document changes in the person's condition over the long term. I am referring to the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, or the UPGRAF for short. No, I'm not talking about UPS, the Postal Service. I'm talking about the UPGRAF. We're so great these days at having acronyms for everything, sometimes it gets kind of confusing. But instead of having to repeat Unified Parkinson Disease Rating Scale for the next few minutes, I'm now going to refer to this as the UPGRF. Okay? Hope that's okay with you. So, what the heck is it? The UPGRF is a very detailed and extensive scoring system that evaluates more than 40 different aspects of Parkinson's, including not only your motor experiences of daily living, but also your non-motor aspects, as well as motor examination and motor complications too. It is important to note that not all neurologists use scales. Some of them do. And of those that do, the UPGRS is usually the one that is used. This is a scale that is used all over the world. And I'm sure when I describe it to you, you will recognize it right away as the form that your doctor might use as he or she writes things down during your appointment. I'll do my best to describe this form to you, but this is one time when there's one big disadvantage to my chats, because I can't show you stuff like this. It would make it so much easier if I could just give you a handout on what this scale looks like, but never mind, I'll do my best. Okay, just like we refer to levodopa as the gold standard medication for people living with Parkinson's, the UPGRS is the gold standard scale used to measure your progression, if there is any progression, that is, since your previous appointment. Hang on, I'm just going to take a quick drink of water. Okay, back again. So, if we take the motor examination to start with, there is a column of symptoms on the left-hand side of the page, and there are boxes beside each symptom for the doctor to write a number between 1 and 4, 1 being normal and 4 being severely impaired. So, if we take speech as one symptom, for example, a 0 means that your speech is normal. 1 means it is mildly affected, no difficulty being understood. 2 means moderately effective. Sometimes you might have to be asked to repeat statements, and that means your speech is moderately affected. 3 means severely affected. That means you are frequently asked to repeat a statement. And 4 means unintelligible most of the time. So, using the UPGRAF, the doctor can easily see your scores on your last visit and be able to compare the 2 visits to see if there have been any changes. I hope you're still with me on this one. You will see your doctors filling in numbers on your form, which is part of your chart, and often asking you to tap your fingers, open and close your fists, get up from a chair, respond to being pulled from behind, to name just a few things that take place during your visit. You might sometimes wonder, what on earth is all this for? Of course, the advantages in the science of Parkinson's, the growing recognition in the role of patients can play in tracking your own progress, and the reevaluation of the very definition of what Parkinson's is and where it comes from and what physical functions it may affect, has necessitated a revision of the original UPGRAF. The new scale involves input and involvement of patients and caregivers. However, it is still organized with 0 meaning normal, and that's no problems, 1 means minimal, 2 is mild, 3 is moderate, and 4 is severe. So, if we had another hour together, please don't all groan at once, you might hurt my feelings. If I could show you the UPDRS form, which is what I would like to do, we could go over the scale, one topic at a time, just as I did with speech, to explain what the differences are between the 0 and 4 for each symptom. So that's what I would like to do. But I think I would not only bore you to death, there is too much information for you to be able to remember it all. What I am going to do instead is list some of the topics that your doctor will ask you about during your visit, as well as things he or she can observe and things you will be asked to do, just to give you an idea of how holistic the UPDRS is in scope, and recognize how many aspects of your life are impacted by Parkinson's. Remember, these are on a scale of 0 to 4. So here goes. Things that are going to be assessed are intellectual impairment or memory loss, hallucinations and delusions, depressed mood, anxious mood, apathy, impulse control disorder, sleep problems, daytime sleepiness, pain and other sensations, urinary problems, problems with constipation, lightheadedness on standing, fatigue, speech, saliva and drooling, chewing and swallowing, eating tasks such as your ability to cut your food and use utensils, dressing, hygiene, handwriting, interest in hobbies and other activities, turning over in bed, impact of tremor on ability to do things, getting in and out of bed, walking and balance, problems with episodes of freezing, facial expression, stiffness and rigidity, finger tapping, hand movements, balance problems, slowness of movements, severity of tremor, etc. Also, other problems that often come along with medications used to treat Parkinson's as well as other symptoms, such as dyskinesias, those involuntary movements that are involved sometimes with medications as side effects of medications. Dystonia, that's those prolonged muscle cramps that some people experience, where toes will curl, feet will curl, etc. Very painful. Doctors also want to know about what we call motor fluctuations. That's the amount of time spent in an off state during the day. Are the fluctuations predictable or unpredictable? Sleep disturbances, too little or too much. Whew. Heard enough? Maybe too much information. Okay, sorry. So we started out today looking at the stages of Parkinson's. Then we went on to looking at how doctors keep score on you to help them determine the best treatment for you to control your symptoms. Last month, my topic was how to talk to your doctor, and I stressed the importance of keeping a journal of your symptoms, your responses to medications, any new challenges that arise. My hope is now that you have a better understanding of the stages of Parkinson's, what information your doctor is looking for during your appointments, and that it will help you to see how the information you take to your appointment, as well as your ability to accurately answer the questions on the UPGRAF, the rating scale I've discussed today, will also result in the best treatment for you, which in turn will provide you with the best quality of life possible. So I just want to go over these things again, for just briefly. People often ask what stage of Parkinson's they're in. Staging in most diseases is important in predicting how long people will live and how well they can function. This is particularly important in cancer and heart disease. Different cancers have different systems for staging, as experience has accumulated to distinguish how ominous it is to have cancer spread to lymph nodes and other places in the body. Stage 2, Stage 3, Stage 4 carry with them a certain chance of survival for a specific period of time. This is not true for staging in Parkinson's, and I cannot stress that enough. I just can't stress enough that staging in Parkinson's is not anything like staging, for example, in cancer. The staging symptom we use is based on the Hoehn-Yahr scale, on the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, etc. These scales have been around for many years, and they really are scales that help your doctor to know where you are at. The problem, again, is the fact that stages fluctuate from stage usually 1 to 3 during the course of any given day. So how you are right now is not necessarily how you'll be in an hour or 2 or 3 from now. So that's why I get concerned about people thinking that the stages of Parkinson's are like the stages of other diseases, and nothing could be further from the truth. So again, as I said, please don't spend a great deal of time worrying about what stage you're in. It is more important to concentrate on the here and now, because the severity of Parkinson's is really not measurable. It affects so many people in so many different ways that it defies methods for comparison, just as it is impossible so far to measure what we mean when we say disease progression. We have good methods for measuring motor symptoms. We can add points for tremor, stiffness, slowness, posture, and walking. We can come up with a number for those things. And that is currently how we test even new treatments for Parkinson's. So again, the stages of Parkinson's are not what you may have originally thought before I started my chat with you today. And again, should not be something that you really need to be greatly concerned about. Okay, so I have a few minutes left, and I have received a couple of questions that I would like to address now. One is from an individual who is asking about a very specific diet. It's called Ketogenic diet, Ketogenic, the keto or ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diets have been around for about 90 years, and they have been used primarily in epilepsy for children who have not responded well to medications. Usually the body uses carbohydrates, such as sugar, bread, and pasta for fuel, but because the ketogenic diet is very low in carbohydrates and fats, the fats become the primary fuel instead. The ratio of fat to protein and carbohydrate in this diet is 4:1. Medical supervision is required for this diet. Foods need to be carefully weighed and measured, and either skipping meals or cheating on the diet can disrupt any benefit. This diet is used with children, but though there can be a benefit for adults, adults generally find it much easier much more difficult to comply with because it is very restrictive. It doesn't taste very good most of the time, and using the diet is not particularly, there's nothing about the diet that has been proven to be helpful for people with Parkinson's. There was one small uncontrolled study done back in 2005. It was only done on 7 people living with Parkinson's, and they did show some benefit after a period of a month, but it would require much more research to know whether this is a viable diet that would be beneficial for people with Parkinson's. While there is some other research currently exploring why a fat-rich diet could cause changes in neurodegenerative conditions, there is not enough evidence at this time to suggest that it is a useful diet for the long-term treatment of Parkinson's. Another question that I have received as soon as I find it. Hang on one second. Okay, so another question that I have received is from a gentleman. This gentleman is 64 years of age, has had Parkinson's for several years. He's had 2 deep brain stimulation surgery. His question is, he says, I am finding I am tired all the time, but really my biggest problem is I have little ambition to complete a task. I am not feeling depressed or any other signs leading in that direction. So this gentleman is asking for any input that I might have for him. Well, sir, if you're listening today, I think that what you're suffering from is a condition called apathy. Apathy is a condition that I have spoken about in the past as well. I do have a couple of documents about apathy and Parkinson's, because it really occurs very commonly in at least 50% of people with Parkinson's. Yet it remains one of the most misunderstood symptoms. It is a condition that is really separate from depression and anxiety, which are the two most common mood-related symptoms with Parkinson's. But it is similar to depression and anxiety in that apathy, depression, and anxiety, excuse me, my voice is disappearing on me, are more likely caused by physiological changes in the brain than by psychological reactions to having Parkinson's. So again, people who are experiencing apathy are generally less interested in taking part in activities that help to maintain their level of functioning. They find it difficult to complete tasks, etc. So if the gentleman who has asked this question would like the documents on apathy and Parkinson's, I'd be very happy to supply those for the person. I believe I have one more question here before we finish for today. The question is, what percentage of people live in the higher stages of Parkinson's? And then it says, is it a very low percentage? I would say the answer to that is that most people with Parkinson's, as I said earlier in my talk, never get to stage 5. I think that most people live in the third stage, the middle stage of Parkinson's. That's the third stage of Parkinson's for the longest time. I would say between stages 3 and 4 is the longest time where people spend most of their time. But again, between stage 1, which is right at the beginning of the diagnosis, and stage 4 or even stage 5 can take 10, 20, right up to 40 years. I wasn't kidding when I said that I know people who have been in stage 4 with Parkinson's for 20 years. And so again, the answer is no. The highest percentage of people with Parkinson's live in stage 3. The next highest percentage is those who live in stage 4. That's where you do need some assistance, not all of the time, but some of the time, where you may have to use a walker, for example, for your mobility issues and your balance issues, but you can still have a very good quality of life. So I hope that answers that person's question. And another question I have received today is, are there any skin conditions, example, rashes and dryness, that are related to Parkinson's? And the answer to that is yes, there are skin conditions. I'm just going to check, hang on a second, because I just want to call it by name. So basically, there are skin conditions like a psoriasis, where people with Parkinson's have oily skin, and also the skin conditions can be also very dry. If the person who is asking this question would like to give me a call, 416-227-3375 or 1-800-565-3000, extension 3375. I'd be happy to give you more information on the skin conditions relating to Parkinson's. As I said, there definitely are dermatological issues with Parkinson's. Most often it is oiliness of the skin, requiring more frequent washing of both the skin as well as the hair, dryness in scalps, etc. Area as well can be a very big problem for people with Parkinson's. So the answer is absolutely. Oh, there's one more question coming. Hang in there, guys. In the meantime, I'm going to look up skin. Sorry. Okay. I've got my Bible book of references here. So hang on a second. There's one more question on its way, but in the meantime, I'm looking up skin as we speak. Okay, skin rash. Sorry, but sometimes it's difficult. Okay, skin rash. I'm reading right from my reference book here. For unknown reasons, many people, oh, here's the word, I couldn't remember, seborrheic dermatitis. Sorry, guys, can't remember every word that's related to Parkinson's. Okay, let's go. For unknown reasons, many people with Parkinson's develop a particular kind of skin rash termed seborrheic dermatitis. Spell S-E-B-O-R-R-H-E-I-C, dermatitis, D-E-R-M-A-T-I-T-S. Skin over the scalp and around the facial creases of the nose and mouth may develop an oily, scaly, reddened appearance. The scalp rash responds well to tar-based shampoos, and if the rash develops further, these shampoos should be used at least once or twice a week. Facial irritation can be effectively treated by applying mild steroid-based ointments and creams on the affected areas. This one doesn't refer to the dryness specifically, but there is definitely dermatitis involved with Parkinson's as well. Okay. Here's another question. Oh, this is a biggie. I won't have time to address this completely. The question is, does Parkinson's affect the eyes? I have difficulty focusing at the end of the day, and I'm wondering if this is related. So, the most common problem for people with Parkinson's and sight is the fact that your eyes are controlled by muscles. So, as I'm sitting here at my desk and I'm looking at a piece of paper, in order for me to focus on the writing on the paper, my eyes have to track together. In other words, from left to right and up and down, my eyes have to track. They have to be in the same place at the same time. Because your eyes are controlled by muscles behind the eyes, sometimes those muscles are also stiff and slow, particularly on the side of the Parkinson's where it started first, and your most affected side. So if one eye muscle that's controlling your sight is moving slower than the other one, you will definitely have difficulty focusing. Your vision will definitely be affected. And as this is happening to this caller at the end of the day, I'm guessing it's due to tiredness of the eyes and fatigue. So definitely, again, if the person who has asked this question would like more information, I can be contacted and I will provide more information on eyes, movements, and Parkinson's. Great questions. Okay, now, last but not least, my talk for May is going to be on complementary and alternative therapies. And the topic is smokescreen or new pathways. So again, I'm going to talk about complementary and alternative therapies, smokescreen or new pathways. And because there are lots of upcoming things in the media all the time, we get lots of calls from people who have tried various things, etc. And so I think it's only fair to address some of these complementary and alternative therapies for the treatment of Parkinson's. Okay? So, my voice is about to disappear on me. I apologize for that. I always get rather croaky at the end of my talk. But if you have any more questions about my topic from today, if you have more questions in general, I'm happy to respond to any questions, because keeping in mind, these talks are for you. They're not about Sandy Jones. And if there's a topic that you specifically want me to address for one of my chats, let me know, and we'll go for it. Okay? Thanks, guys. Happy April. It's April Awareness, as you all know. Yesterday was the World Parkinson's Awareness Day, recognized as Parkinson's Awareness Day throughout the world. And so happy Parkinson's Awareness Month. Take care, everybody. We'll chat again in May. Love you all. Bye for now.